Welcome to the Delvin Cox Experience, the podcast in which each week I'm on a one-man mission to unite our culture through diversity. I'm your host, Delvin Cox, and with me on the podcast is a special guest. Let them know who you are.
Hi, Delvin. My name is Lamarquinita Lowe, but everyone can call me Nita for short.
Welcome to the experience, Nita.
Thank you for
How you
having
doing
me.
today?
I'm doing awesome. Sunday, been relaxing, watching lots of Hulu. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing really good.
Good to
As,
hear.
as always, we like to start the podcast off with the 5 for 5. Five
Oh,
questions, 5 answers to get the ball rolling. Nita, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm curious what this is.
All right. Question number 1. As a kid, give me your top 5 favorite cartoons.
Oh, as a kid. Oh, my. Okay. And hold on. I got to go in my little time machine. As a kid, my top 5 favorite, it would definitely have to be on the cartoons on the Saturday morning.
Okay.
So things like Pepper Ann,
Okay.
Doug.
I like Doug.
Doug. There was another one. You might be able to help me out, though. Saturday morning cartoons. I know those two were my top. I would say any of the Saturday morning cartoons are my favorite. I'm trying to think of the other names.
Pepper Ann, Doug, Hey Arnold, Rocco's Modern Life.
You got it. Hey Arnold, Rocco. I would say all of them. All of them. So the one Saturday morning cartoon.
Okay. I like that answer because there was a lot of different Saturday morning cartoons that was really good.
Yes, so those.
Okay. Question number 2. I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you this question because this has been a not hotly debated question. People have been agreeing with me. But I'm going to ask you this to see your take on it.
Yes.
To the best of your ability, describe the fruit of the Loom's logo.
Oh, the fruit. Oh, I like this one. So I think there are actually several takes you can take on it. I don't know if the logo's changed, but from what I remember, there are lots of fruits.
Okay.
And Fruit of the Looms have expanded to both male and female.
Yes.
So I think the fruit can represent the tree of life. Life starts in the area that we wear those things.
I like that.
I also think Fruit of the Looms can represent like birth and growth, because fruit is such a in general it symbolizes like growing, whether it's growing from the soil, the ground, so kind of represent birth and growth. I am curious, does it have a meaning?
No, I was asking you what do you remember the logo, but you gave me a completely different answer that I love. That is a cool way to look at the logo of Fruit of the Looms.
Yeah, Fruit of the Loom. That's my take on it. Just
I love that answer. I love that you kind of saw that like, oh, this means life and growth. Yeah, that's kind of dope.
Yes,
I never thought about that till you said that.
You're gonna have me looking it up though.
I will send you what it is so you can get an idea what I'm talking about.
Oh, perfect.
So you can see it like, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that, but yeah.
Okay.
That was a really good answer because I didn't even think about all that stuff that you said about Fruit of the Loom and the logo and the fruits and stuff like that. It's kind of brilliant.
Oh, thanks.
I like it.
Thank you.
Question number 3, Nita. What is the dumbest thing you've ever done as a kid?
Ooh, the dumbest thing I've ever done.
As a kid?
Yeah, why I don't ride bikes now. When I was a kid, it was kind of not my first time riding a bike, but I literally thought I was a superhero and I could go up a tree. So I had a bike, literally tried to ride the bike up the tree. I'm sure you know what happened. I fell down, didn't break any bones, but my face got really bruised, and it took a while for me not to ride bikes. So just thinking I was like a superhero, I think like most kids.
So you thought you was Batwoman. You just ride the bike straight up a tree.
Just go straight up.
Yeah. All right. Question number 4. This is going to be a philosophical one since you gave me a philosophical question answer earlier. What do you think is the key to life?
Ooh, the key to life. I would definitely say that answer has changed, but if I was to answer that now, I honestly would say, as cliche as it sounds, inner peace. Meaning internal inner peace, because it's like you can have everything, But at the end of the day, if you don't go to bed happy, feeling peaceful, it's like none of that materialistic stuff will make a difference. So inner peace.
Okay. I like that answer. That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Question number 5. All right. What does blackness mean to you?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked that question because that's part of the name of one of my companies. It's called Black and Cream. I will answer it actually from the perspective of both, since the name Black is in my company. For me, when I think the word Black, the first thing that comes to mind is I think diaspora. When you think of the word diaspora, you think of something that might be scattered, but also with the diaspora, it's something that comes together. So it's kind of like an oxymoron, scattered but come together. So if I had to define Black, I would say Black is a diaspora of ethnicity, of culture, of identity, and it's finding a way to find those commonalities and also a way to accept those differences. So I would say, yeah, I would define it definitely with the word diaspora.
I like it. That's a good answer. So let's get to it.
Yes.
For those who don't know, let people know what you do, because I think it's very important to highlight people like you who do the things that you do and kind of go ahead. I'll let you speak for yourself.
Thank you, Delvin. I just want to say I'm like really excited for what you do. I before joining this, I watched a few of your podcasts. I was like, "Ooh, he is doing it." I was looking at the different people you have, so I just want you to know I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
So I'm kind of in 3 different spaces, but they're all dealing with entrepreneurship. So number one, I would say I'm really passionate about being a CEO and entrepreneur. I have 3 different companies. The first one is called Mercury 3, which is a handmade vegan cosmetic company. The second one is called Black and Cream. It's actually a startup that I just started during the pandemic. It's a sustainable fashion company. And then the third one I actually started about 3 months ago. It's a print and digital magazine called LDO Magazine. So bringing together, just like people at the local level to get them in the print media.
That is all incredible. Like, I appreciate that we have our people going out there becoming entrepreneurs, doing their thing, and becoming successful. I think that's really dope. So, what led you down this path? Because it had to be something to make you say, you know what, I want to be my own businesswoman. I want to be in business for myself. I want to be my own CEO. So, what got you there?
Yes, to be honest, for me, it honestly started as a kid. And it's interesting because you hear even a lot of creatives, it's always been in them as a child, but maybe they just went on a different path. So specifically with my makeup company, Mercury 3, it's actually something I've done since I was like preteen. I always like handmade my own cosmetics, handmade my own hair products. I learned a lot of handmaking things from my grandmother. So I've actually always handmade things and kind of like side hustle. I kind of just gave it away to people without necessarily, creating a business. But I guess you can say it was an informal business where I still made things and gave it to people and sold it. So I would say Mercury 3 was kind of like a hobby that I did as a kid just to make things for myself and other people. But of course, after you go to college and you start to learn about like money and economics, you're like, hey, I can turn this hobby into a business. So I would say all of them actually were things I've done, like even with fashion. I did pageantry. And even with LDO Magazine, I've been an indie author since I was in high school, so I've published my own book and I was in a publishing company since high school. So I think the switch of turning it from, childhood hobby to entrepreneurship honestly came from realizing that I wanted to be something not just for money, but also something that can leave a legacy, so building something that someone else can pick up on, when I'm not in the company anymore.
I love your energy.
Oh, thank you.
And I love the fact that more and more I'm seeing Black women go out there and do for themselves, become their own businesswomen, become their own success stories, because for so long we've seen so many of our people, especially Black women, go out there and try to go in the workforce, not get hired, and get turned away. Now we're getting to like a level where we're starting to see these same women go make their own path. And I appreciate that you kind of had the foresight to do that on your own. You're like, I don't need to go out that workforce. I don't necessarily need to go do that. You said, which I think is incredible. You were an author in high school.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that when I think of. Oh.
That is a wild thing to say. Like I was writing books in high school.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
I barely went to read books in high school. You were writing.
I gotta send you some of mine.
Oh, definitely. So yes. What was your first? Well, first off, what was your first book that you wrote was about? What was the idea? How did you get to that?
Yes, it's funny you said that. So my first book was a poetry book. I published it actually right before I graduated, but it was something that I paid attention in class. I got good grades, but I was that person because you had your people that would draw at the seat. Then you had your people that would write notes and pass it. I was that person that would write poetry and stories. So I was still actively listening to the teachers, but I would just be at the desk. So my first book was a poetry book of actually poems that I wrote in middle school. And then I just kind of like collected them and realized like, wow, I can actually, publish this before I walk the stage. So my goal was to have all of those poems compiled in one book. So I can, it was like a graduation gift to myself.
That is pretty cool.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's awesome because, poetry itself feels like it's such a lost art.
Yes.
I remember growing up, like hearing the works of Maya Angelou and Langston Hughes and stuff like that. And now that I'm older, I'm like, I don't see this generation talk about those type of stuff. I see them more talk about hip hop and R&B, which is kind of replacing poetry in that aspect. But I also think it's important to highlight the coolness of poetry and everything that poetry kind of brings to the table. I think that's very important. I think it's awesome that you were doing that at such a young age.
Oh, thank you, Delvin. Yeah, it is. I'm still waiting to see, like you said, there's not a lot of people that still do poetry. It's very small still. For something that's been around so long, it's still a very small niche market.
Yeah. So you published this first book. You're all excited and stuff like that. So where did you go from there? Did you say, I'm going to make another book? How did you get from that point to where you're at now?
Yes, so there actually was a big gap. And I think even just from talking to entrepreneurs, I know now, I think a lot of people have similar experiences. So because I was in high school, you got to realize I wasn't quite an adult yet. I definitely had people that, cared about me and wanted me to go on the right path. But I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, like when you're young, you want to be an entrepreneur. If you don't have that support system, I was very influenced to go to college. Okay. So I, it was just like, you got to enroll, you got to fill out your applications. It's not that I didn't want to go to college, but as you just heard, I knew very young, like, I'm either going to be an author or I'm going to be an entrepreneur. But I think because I wasn't 18 yet, I wasn't quite given that choice. So I did end up going to college. And then like most people, once you go to college, you feel you have to continue to get your master's. And so I would say my gap, Mercury 3 started in 2015. So I graduated high school 2005. So that was like almost, what's that, 10 years?
Yeah.
10-year gap. I was a calculator. So 10-year gap before I actually went back to that. And it's not because I stopped it. It was because I was never given a choice to be an entrepreneur at a young age. So yeah, a big gap.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What I want you to elaborate a little bit on that. Like what you mean that you were never given a choice to be an entrepreneur? I know you went to college. What happened between that gap to kind of like, all right, I couldn't do it then, but now it's the time where I can kind of be my own businesswoman?
Yes, honestly, I honestly would say two things. Number one, college. I want to be careful how I say this. Education is important. So I definitely think people should be educated. Because I was a teacher during that time and I taught kids. But at the same time, I think if you do want to go the entrepreneurship path, sometimes like going to college might not be the best path. So I actually realized that my first year, I actually was on probation. I actually almost flunked out. Oh. And it's shocking to hear that now because now I get like straight A's. And it wasn't because like I couldn't do the work. It's just I wasn't passionate about it because I knew like this is not what I wanted to do. So I think even going through those 4 years, I'm always a person like I want to finish what I start. So even though I went through college, those whole 4 years, you can say I wasn't passionate about it. So it was still in the back of my mind of when am I going to switch. I would say what actually pushed me to go back to it actually has been working as a teacher. I was a teacher for about 10 years and I worked with kids. When you're around kids, I'm not sure if you have kids, they're very creative.
Yes, they are. I have two.
They are very creative. And it's like, wow, I'm teaching these kids how to bring out their creativity and bring out their talent. And it was kind of hypocritical that I wasn't doing like the same thing in my own life. You know what I mean? So I think teaching and even being in college made me realize I wasn't on the path that I was meant to be on. So it was kind of, I guess you can say, soul searching of finally making this decision. Hey, I'm just going to start my website. I did it in like one day and launched the company in like 1 week.
That's dope. I think it's really interesting what you said earlier about how you had this path that you went down, not necessarily because you wanted to go down it, but because society kind of told you, you kind of got to go to college, you got to kind of do that.
Yes.
And to touch back on something we said earlier about your inner peace and stuff like that, you kind of found this, that it wasn't making you necessarily happy. You wasn't following your goals and dreams. And I think there's a lesson to be learned from this because so many people kind of like, they get in that rut, they do what they feel they have to do as opposed to what they want to do to survive. And I think it's cool that you, 10-year career as a teacher, a good job. It's a good job, and I think it's a very respectful job. You kind of said, you know what? I need to find my path. I'm sitting here guiding these kids every day to find their path. Now I need to find my path. You kind of took that leap of faith, it seems like. And I think that's really brave of you.
I love that word, leap of faith. That's what it is. Leap of faith. Yes, leap of faith.
So what was that like? What was it like to be like, all right, I'm leaving this stable job of being a teacher. Teachers, I'll say it 1,000 times again, teachers are overworked and underpaid. Mm-hmm. But you're leaving the stability there. It's leaving a stable job as a teacher to go to like, you know what, I'm going to start my own path and do what I need to do.
Yes, I would say I didn't fully leave. So like most people was working your typical 9 to 5 by funding it. But I would say the biggest transition, it was scary because if you're not seeking like, for example, outside funding or you have like family or friends to help invest in it, I pretty much use my teaching paycheck. I mean, like you said, we don't get paid a lot. I had to like literally calculate how many checks to save up for just to purchase, for example, things like inventory, launching the website. So I would say the hardest part was not necessarily the vision or creativity because that was always there. The hardest part was how am I going to fund it? Even now, that's still a challenge, funding a business. So the biggest part was the financial part of how do I still, survive and support myself, but making sure that some of this income is coming into my dream.
I think that's great. So how did you? So you were using your teaching thing to fund it. Yes. How did you go about? Because I think this will help a lot of people. How do you even go about starting a business? Like, okay, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to be a CEO. What was the process like to do that?
Yes, now it's very different. I can kind of give you before and after because my third one, there's a strategic way of doing it. To be honest with you, Delvin, before I had no idea what I was doing. Not that I know of, but I didn't know any of my family that did entrepreneurship, meaning starting their own business. So when I tell you the internet was literally my best friend, I mean, and it's not popping like it is now where you could just go on like TikTok and watch a little short snips. Like I did some research, meaning like I would just type in, like I didn't even know what a seller's permit was at the time. So I remember just like doing research and I remember actually a list came up on Google, these are the things you need to do first. And I remember reading, like, what is a seller's permit? Like, so I would just research every single thing on that list. Now, because I'm on my third one, I know like, okay, first before you can sell and not get sued, you do got to get your business license, you do got to get your seller's permit. So I would say if you have no clue where to start, especially now because there's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's, the internet, honestly, just just research. Even if you type in, let's just say, I don't know, if you want to start a, for example, cosmetic business, how to start a cosmetic business, you'll be actually extremely shocked, especially now, how much information comes up. So in the beginning, it was trial and error. Now it's like, okay, there are certain websites I go to, like LegalZoom, for example, that tell you like how to start a business.
That's really good. That's really cool that you can just. That's the amazing thing about the internet. As much flack as the internet gets for being toxic and many other things.
Yeah.
The fact that you can go out there and find anything you need to find out to start a business is great.
Yes, yes.
So, what were some of the trials and tribulations you had, like even starting a business up, like especially as a Black woman?
Yeah, you actually just named the number one thing I was going to say. It's actually the number one trial into this very second. And I'll elaborate on it. Honestly, it's being a Black woman. Number one, statistically, I just think in general, men get more investment no matter if you're in the tech field. I actually just found out for the beauty field that men actually dominate the beauty field, meaning wow. Like the high, you would think, because more women, that it would be women in those executive positions. So even now, I think the biggest thing is there definitely is access to funding. And there's a lot more diverse programs for like African-American women, but those programs are very competitive, like accelerators, for example, and incubators. They're very competitive and very selective. You might have like 1,000 people applying for an accelerator and funding that's only admitting 8 people. So I think the challenge is a lot of the investment opportunities I've thought, they are ran by men and they're not ran by African Americans. So it's like the chances of being able to get in those doors are very slim. So just, I think, fighting just to be seen is the biggest challenge, just to be seen, to show I am an entrepreneur, I am a CEO, but you got to get past the physical and color barrier first.
Yeah, that seems very challenging depending on who you're talking to and what rooms you get into, because people tend to have their own biases and don't necessarily take us serious when we walk into a room until they hear us talk and we show that we know what we're talking about.
That we know what we're talking about and that your business too. It's like you have to prove yourself.
So what has that been like, kind of? Because apparently you're doing something right. You have 3 businesses now. What has that been like, just even starting this up, like getting business one on the ground enough so you can move to business 2. So let's go over that little process right there.
Yes, I think the biggest difference, and even opportunities like this that I didn't do in the first business that I actually realized helps a lot to open up those networks, actually is PR. So whether it's PR, doing podcasts like yours, whether it's PR with like a magazine, or whether it's even traditional PR, being in like a newspaper or on a website. I think when I actually started utilizing that more, my goal was not necessarily like visibility, but it was more so how can I like use PR to connect with the audience in this niche. Like even when I was watching your videos, I was like, I can tell just from like your videos and your podcast, you probably have an audience that's like real down to earth. They like to hear about certain topics, and that audience can become potential customers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think PR has been my key in how like I've gotten my businesses to grow. So I feel even if you're not like bringing in like $1 million, if you can tap into that PR, you can tap into like a new audience that you can connect to.
I'm glad you brought that up about PR and marketing, because you being an independent CEO, entrepreneur, what is that like trying to, because one thing about me, I know a lot of incredibly talented people, and I tell them this all the time. I know a lot of incredibly talented people, whether it's writers, creators. They are very good at everything else except marketing.
It's hard.
And it's like, and it always frustrates me a little bit because I see their talent, I see their growth, and I see their ability, but it's hard to get other people to see it if they don't know you exist.
Yeah.
So what is that like for you, and how do you go about letting people know that, hey, I'm out here. This is what I do. This is what I sell. I'm out here. Instead of going over to these people, come to me.
Yes. Yes, I think I'm going to actually use your background as an example. So, right when I popped onto this, let's just say if I didn't know who you were, I'm like, whoa, he got that Delvin Cox in the background. I see kind of like a city thing. I can tell he was ready for this because his shirt is blending, with the background. So already I'm like, you got your personal branding. You know what type of not only visual image you want to present, but just your visual image can kind of tell like your persona, what your business is about. So I noticed with me, with Mercury 3, I got zero PR. And I think part of that, not only because it was my first business, but I think I was trying to be like every other cosmetic company.
Yeah.
I was trying to do things the way that they do. Black and Cream, my fashion company, was actually the first time PR came organically for me. And when I asked, the people that, for example, like asked me to be in magazines, like, what did you see? It was honestly just being myself. Like, I'm very vocal and I'm a Black owned business. I'm very vocal in I'm trying to bring, sustainable fashion to Black women. So I'm very vocal in my like personal story. I'm very vocal in my morals. And so I think some people are afraid of that because they're like, you can't be so like activism about certain things. But I think with PR people are looking for a story. So I think if you approach PR from the perspective of not only are they looking for your business story, they're also looking for your personal story. And you really just have to be natural. I think if you try to mold into like a company that doesn't represent who you are, then it's going to be more of a challenge. I hope that makes sense. So like,
That
I
makes
think they
perfect sense.
call it personal branding.
That makes perfect sense. So how do you, including branding, how do you go about marketing? Because you do fashion, of course. You do makeup, of course. How do you go out there and put that out there for people to see? Do you like have models that work for you? Do you like family members and put an ad out on Facebook ad or something like that? What's the process?
Got it. You got a combination. So I would say probably the beauty and fashion is very similar, but the magazine is very different. So for beauty and fashion, I think the biggest thing is what we call influencer marketing. So getting people not only to wear your product, but people that represent your brand. Believe in your actual mission. So I do a lot of influencer marketing. I actually try to do a lot of lives. I don't do it's interesting. I'm not like a person that likes to talk publicly, but I try to do a lot of lives, whether it's just like answering questions about my business or, doing live sale of products, because I realize people do like to see your face.
Yeah.
Sometimes if they just go to the website, they might click off really quick. But like if you're on a video, they see you on Instagram live or, a Facebook live, they're like, oh, let me check it out. So I think the live visibility is huge for social media, especially because there's so much saturation. We click through images so quick sometimes. So just jumping on live. LDL. Okay, sorry.
I think you kind of nailed something that I didn't think about in terms of what you do, like in terms of fashion and makeup and stuff. Yeah, I kind of think people kind of want to see your face because of multiple reasons, including the one that, hey, they want to see if you're wearing the makeup and the clothes that you designed,
They do, yeah.
and they want to see how it looks on you. So I think that's a very important aspect of it. I didn't really think about that till you said it. Like, yeah, people, most women who buy clothes want to say, all right, she's wearing her product and it looks good
No,
on
you're
her.
right.
So it could probably look good on me. So yeah, I kind of see that now.
Yes, it's huge. It's funny you said that. Even like when I'm catching like a Lyft and Ubers, like I will purposely wear my makeup. I'm the person that will have like samples in my bag, and I'll purposely wear like, for example, my bright highlighter because I know if I'm driving like with a woman driver, they're probably gonna be like, "What's that?" And I just literally pull it out of my purse. I'm like, "Oh, would you like a sample?" So I think just like you said, just using yourself as like your marketing for in-person things is really huge.
Yeah, I think that's something I never really thought about. But yeah, I guess that works for you because you're a pretty woman, and like I said, usually if you other pretty women see you and they say, "Oh, your makeup looks nice," and you can kind of just like, "Hey, this is my makeup right here. It's almost like a calling card, almost. So that's
It is,
smart.
it is, it is, and they'll take it too. They'll take it
Because women like makeup and they like free makeup. So
yes, free makeup. Yes, you got it. So
if you
yeah,
have samples on you, that's kind of smart.
yes. Oh, I always tell people, even if your sample is your business card, you gotta have something.
Yeah, you got to have something to show people
Mhm.
so people can check out your stuff. So I think that's really cool. So let me ask this. What made you start a magazine, and what is the magazine? What pertains to the magazine? What's even in the magazine? Because I think that's a really cool concept.
Yes, I would say two main things. So, actually, very similar to the question you just started. So, I have been blessed with specifically Black and Cream. I got featured in British Vogue like a year and a half ago, and it opened up. When I tell you, Delvin, I was so not ready for it. Meaning, I just thought, oh, I'm gonna, get this magazine feature, and that's it. It opened up so many doors, like in PR for free. However, as I was like being featured and asked to like do this event and this event, I realized I always saw the same faces. So I was like, I'm very thankful that as a, small Black owned entrepreneur, I can now be in these spaces. But even just talking to some of my friend entrepreneurs, they're like, how do I get in like a Vogue, or how do I get? So you hear like a lot of local artists, a lot of, small entrepreneurs, they're seeking PR, even if it's from small indie brands. They're literally seeking exposure. So I was like, it would be really cool. So every time I was featured in a magazine, I literally was like writing how they did their operations. I was like saving templates to create my own templates for emails. And I was like, it would be really cool if I can have a magazine where I bring together people at the local and the indie level. So LDL magazine is specifically focused on the local and the indie level. So whether you're a community leader, an upcoming author, one of the features I just released like her debut album, and she
Whoa.
wanted to use this magazine as her first promotion. So, and I think the thing with indie magazines, I always tell people, like, even though you're not mainstream yet, you can still reach an audience because it's such a niche audience that people are seeking like new people that are rising and upcoming. So that's what the magazine is. So it's kind of like upcoming and rising people that don't quite have a big platform, but they're starting to get a platform.
That is really cool that you kind of highlight people like that. That is dope.
Yes, yes. I was like, oh, maybe I gotta ask Delvin. I was like, I know you're like, you're like a big star though, so I was like, I don't know if he'll say yes.
I would be happy to. Gladly.
Yes, yes, thank you.
But I want to ask you, how? Because you just dropped this huge bombshell on me. How does one get in British Vogue? Did they call you like, hey?
It was literally shockingly, and this is when you talk about PR. Some people are watching you without realizing you're watching you. When British Vogue contacted me, I had I think 300 followers on Instagram. So you would think that would be following somebody with like 12 million. They literally just emailed me. And I don't know if you saw, but it was their first all African cover that they've ever done in the history of Vogue.
I
And so
remember that.
that was the one that I was in. So they were specifically looking for Black owned entrepreneurs to do that issue. So I think one thing I do like about the current editor of British Vogue, he's a Black man. He's very in tune to making sure he gets diversity in that magazine. So they were looking for certain people, I think, that fit that theme. So yeah, they just reached out. I thought it actually was spam. I literally ignored it. Like,
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that tracks.
yeah,
Because you're like Vogue,
spam.
British Vogues.
Yeah.
That is so cool because I know growing up, I'm not like a fashion guy, nothing like that, but I know going to stores, you see that Vogue magazine, they're like grocery stores, stuff like, and you see the white person on the cover, like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So when you, as an older person now, and if I see a Black person on a magazine cover like Vogue or something that we don't normally be on,
Yeah.
I appreciate it a lot more. Like, oh, that's dope. Like, hey, Rihanna got that cover. That's dope. I always look at that with a little bit of pride, knowing that our people have come a long way. And what I mean by that is, how do I say this nicely? I'm gonna be straight up.
Oh no, that's okay.
For a long time, Black people in general were mocked for our looks, our characteristics. They would say we got big noses, big butts. They wouldn't insult us. They wouldn't say that we can be these quote unquote supermodels and stuff like that. And we weren't the architect.
Yeah.
So now, looking in today's magazines and just on TV and seeing more people look like us, and then seeing the narrative change, where they're like, no, there are plenty of beautiful black men and women out there that we can support, we can love, and it's not a thing where they kind of like try to hide us in the background.
Yes,
We're,
exactly.
we're on the forefront now, and I think that's really dope that you are on that level.
Oh, thank you.
You're building a company that's, like I said, your magazine's highlighting people of color, which is dope.
Yes.
You're making clothes and makeup for people of color, and I think that's amazing as well, because you can, for all we know, you could be making clothes and makeup for the next Rihanna, the next future Beyonce, the next Michael
I love her,
Jackson.
by the way.
So I always appreciate when we highlight our people.
Yes, I love it. You got to own that. I love how you just own that. I'm like, you guys, don't be afraid to own it. Like, own it.
Yeah, because I grew up and I remember seeing, like, I remember the only black people we see like magazines in terms of black women. You see Halle Berry, you see Tyra Banks, and you see Naomi Campbell.
Yes, I call them the top three. Yes.
Yeah, those are the ones you would see, and maybe you see Grace Jones. Now, it's very diverse, and I think, I like the fact that future generations get that level of diversity.
Yes.
And they get to see that beauty is not one color; it's more of a kaleidoscope of colors.
Oh, I love that word, the kaleidoscope. Yes.
And I think that I love that we live in a time, as for many bad things about these times that we have now. I love the fact that we're probably more diverse than ever.
No, I agree with you. We are. Yes.
And I like that you are kind of adding into that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, let me ask a question about the magazine. How did you find the talent and the people that you put in the magazine to highlight? What's the requirements for that?
Yes. So I was actually thinking, like, should I change this when I grow to make it a little bit like less work for myself? But the answer is to no. So as far as finding them, I do Instagram hashtags. So let's just say, for example, if I was looking for a podcast person, I would type hashtag podcast. But if I wanted like a black podcast person, I would type in black podcast. So I literally for each issue, I know what my themes are. Each magazine has a theme, and then I'll create hashtags for those themes. And I literally just scroll and check out pages. So that's how I do it now. And I just jump in people's DMs. And if they respond, I send them a formal email. So at first I was like, okay, maybe when I grow, that might not be as smart. It'll take too much time. But I actually realized that connection is better because it's such like, indie, local, personal. A lot of people like that because when you think magazines, a lot of people actually don't get to talk directly to the editors. They're either talking to like, the classified person or maybe the assistant. So I think when you actually reach out to them yourself, number one, they know you're real. Number two, they know that you took the time to find them. And number three, they know that you're going to bring their brand and their story to life. So as far as what I look for, I honestly look for diversity. So each issue, I make sure not only diversity, with like race and ethnicity, diversity in the type of entrepreneur. So for example, the March issue is going to be like sports and children. February's issue, I wish I could show you a copy of it, is going to be about love. So there's a lot of families, married couples, power couples. So I try to diversify the topics, but also diversify by culture and ethnicity.
I think that's really good, and I think it's really cool because I grew up around magazines like Ebony, Jet, Black Enterprise, and then those were the ones my parents used to like read and stuff like that. And then you go on to my generation, The Source, Double XL, Vibe. So I always love it. It gives me a feeling of nostalgia when I see a black magazine, and it makes me want to just like scroll through it to just see the little things that they talk about. So I like that you're doing that And you're doing it in digital form and print form?
Yeah, digital and print. I'm actually shocked that digital was doing better, which actually makes sense because you hear that even though print magazines are like, I think print magazines are nostalgia now. There are some people that still want them.
Yes.
So I'm doing both, but I've discovered the digital is doing much better, maybe because of electronics. We got the phones, the iPad.
Yeah, I am one of those people who like print, but yeah, I think we're living in a time where people just kind of want that instant
access. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
So
but
I do both.
I like that you do that.
Oh, thank you.
Let me ask you this. Might be a little bit of an out there question. I'm going to ask anyway. Have you ever thought about marketing to barbershops and salons?
Pause because you're like the third person that said that. So I took that as a sign.
Yeah, I asked that because even now, when I go to barbershops and salons, there's magazines there.
You're right. I actually have not, but you are the third person that has brought this up. So I think to answer your question, it's a sign that I should.
Yes. Yeah, because I think it just seems like a good match.
I like that actually. Yeah, I'm going to do it. That was my spiritual sign. Yeah. So no, you're right. Because I remember even like when I went, I read it a lot. I don't know why I didn't do it.
Because I don't go off, but every time I go, I see magazines and people pick up the magazines, they read them, and it's usually people of our culture who read those books. And I'm like, hey, I kind of dig this.
No, you're right.
Whether it's like makeup, hairstyle, stuff like that, we kind of read that stuff and kind of get our culture from those things, like the barbershop conversations, the salon conversations. That's part of Black culture, whether people understand that or not. That's a big part of Black culture. When you go in a barbershop and they have the barbershop talking conversation, when you go in the hair salon, you hear the gossip and things people talking about. So yeah, so I think that would be pretty cool for you.
I'm gonna do that right after I get off this call, Delvin. I'm like, when I get a spiritual sign, I'm like, okay, that's God telling me to do it now.
All right, let me ask you this: where do you want to take these businesses? Where do you see the future of all these businesses going?
Yes, so each one actually very different, but still the path of entrepreneurship. Specifically for Mercury 3, since I hand make my products, just to let you know, so right now I have 22 products actually on my website, but as far as formulas, I have 500.
Wow.
So yeah, because I've been doing this, like I said, since I was little, and it's not that I can't release all of that, but I was like, it will be so cool when I do grow Mercury 3 if I can private label some of these formulas so other people can start up. Because private label is Fusion Cosmetics, meaning you give your formulas to people and they start up their own cosmetic company. So that's what I want to do with Mercury 3. When I grow and make a name for myself, I want to private label the rest of my formulas because it'll be like a good startup for other people that want to start. For Black and Cream, I do want this one to be more internal. So Black and Cream, especially because it's rooted in Black economics, I want this to be like my family generational wealth company. So meaning like, when I become a mom one day or, training people around me to have roles in the company. LDO Magazine is a company that I do want, I guess you can say kind of to be more corporate because there's so many people involved with this magazine. I want it to be a magazine that can expand to where I can hire people, for example, to be a graphic designer, to be a editor, people to do the digital marketing. So yeah, each one very different. And I think because each of the missions are different. Yeah.
I think that's dope.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see where you take it.
Oh, thank you.
And the future of your companies and to see you get rich.
Yes, you got to get money. I tell people money is what changes the world.
Yeah, and I think we need more people like you becoming successful and getting power.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly. You got to use it the right way.
Yeah, because I feel like as long as we have our people in power, we can make a difference and we can make a change. And I think you're on the right path.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Delvin. You are too. I love this podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, let them know where to find you at and all your products and stuff like that. I'm gonna give you the floor so you can pimp yourself out and everything you have.
Yes. I'll try to keep it. I'll keep it to the Instagram, because from Instagram you'll be able to find everything else.
Okay.
So I'll start Mercury 3. You can find me at Mercury, and it's kind of like the Roman the letter I. So not the number 3, but Mercury I.
Okay.
For Instagram. For LDO Magazine, it's at LDO Magazine. So at LDO Magazine. And for Black and Cream, it's at Black, CREME, and then _. And then, oh my gosh, I probably shouldn't tell my personal, because it's my long name.
All right. This we'll do.
Yes. So
I will get all of your information and put it in the show notes so people can go there.
Oh, perfect.
And click the link and buy some stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Buy a magazine, buy some clothes, buy some makeup, whatever. Even if you don't have nobody to put it on, just buy it. Support Black businesses.
You. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
No problem. You've been awesome.
You've been awesome. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the time.
No problem. And as always, Delvin Cox Experience, we are out. Peace.
Bye-bye.